Kenopsia, Pandora's Wake, The Nomad Chronicles, Book 1 by Bryan F. Irving. Read by Bryan F. Irving. Prelude. The Pandora event, a rip in the fabric of our universe through which spilled another, hostile dimension, known to us now as the Otherverse, occurred in our not-too-distant future. Some claimed that it was an act of God. Others blamed science for ripping a hole in the fabric of the universe. Still others believed it was the Otherverse itself, which tore its way through to us. What caused the Pandora event would, perhaps, still be a matter for debate, if there were enough of us left to debate anything. And if those who were left had time to worry about such matters. Instead, those that are not already dead face a constant and violent struggle to stay alive. First came the alien plagues that devastated humanity, viruses and bacteria that we had no defence against and killed millions. But this is not their story. Those who survived faced the swarms of alien life forms, carnivorous, vicious, monstrous, that swept across the lands. This is not their story either. What remained of the armies of the world, united under the auspices of the United Nations, formed the United Nations Counter-Alien Incursion Force. Uncaphe tried to hold back the tide of monstrous things that spilled through the rips in the walls of our universe. Nor is this their story. As the world degenerated into chaos, the forces of Uncaphe and the Otherverse became locked in battle for possession of our planet. Many survivors turned on one another and fought for what little land or resources remained. This is not even their story. As more and more of our world fell to the Otherverse, and as the terraforming of Earth by that malignant world continued, some survivors did the only thing that was left to do. They ran as far and as fast as they could. This is their story, and they are the Nomads. Chapter 1. Nighttime. The night sky was the clearest it had been for a long time. Gazing upon it now in all its glory, Canute almost forgot that the world he once knew was gone. It seemed at once both peaceful and almost obscene that the universe would tick on as if nothing had happened. The Otherverse had come crashing over the unprepared world, and ever since then, Canute had been running. Save for tonight. Tonight he'd found a place that seemed safe, at least for now. The old campsite was overgrown and neglected, but at least the weeds that overran it were terrestrial. There was no sickly purple fronds or deadly red blossoms here, nor could the caravan's reconnaissance element find any sign of alien fauna in the area. Tonight, they'd made camp and let their guard down, just a little. Well, perhaps not let it down. Canute smiled to himself as he saw the silhouette of Oberfeldwebel Jonas as he paced backwards and forwards along the roof of the airport bus. The Nomads had pressed the bus into the service as a mobile home for Madame Monnier and her children. The gruff German sergeant had been with the UN Counter-Alien Incursion Force in Eastern Europe before their lines collapsed. Despite his gruff, hard exterior, he had a soft spot for children, dogs, and chocolate, and he'd made it his personal mission to see that no harm came to the Monniers. Oberfeldwebel Ulrich peered out towards the road as he paced. His night vision goggles snapped into place. If anything tried to approach the campsite tonight from the north or the east, it would be unlikely that it would escape Ulrich's notice. The west and south approaches were watched by Ulrich's Unteroffizier, Kurt Balkmeyer. Kurt was a very different man from his staff sergeant. Despite the corporal's irreverent humour, it seemed that the two men worked well together, and were as close to friends as men separated by several ranks ever could be. Balkmeyer sat in the cupola of the armoured combat vehicle that they'd used to escape the eastern collapse and to rescue Dr. Almandinger and her nurse, Cherubin Lukuba. Canute didn't know the details of their escape, or their flight across the ravaged Switzerland, but then it hardly mattered now. They were all here, and it all served the Nomads well. Balkmeyer swept his observation area every few minutes, his hands resting on the control handles of the fearsome 50 caliber machine gun that was mounted on the top of the MRAP's turret. He'd been good enough to train several of the Nomads in its use, just in case of emergencies, but he loathed actually letting them crew it. He had to let them sometimes, of course. Even Balkmeyer had to sleep. Lately he'd taken to doing most of that by day, this so that he could man the 50 caliber by night, the time of greatest vulnerability for the Nomads. A sneeze broke Canute's train of thought. He looked round as Oberfeldwebel Ulrich doubled over to sneeze again. A violent, explosive sneeze that would alert anyone to their presence, should such a person be lurking in the darkness. Ulrich muttered something mildly obscene in German, and Canute suppressed a chuckle before calling up in a hoarse stage whisper, "Is everything all right, Oberfeldwebel?" He used the staff sergeant's official title, although it was somewhat redundant now. Nevertheless, Canute thought it seemed appropriate. "Ja, Professor. There must be something nearby that flowers the pollen in the night, ja?" "Allergies," he clarified. Canute grunted an affirmative and returned to the centre of the camp. The Nomads, a rather fanciful name for a band of ragtag survivors who were all running away in much the same direction and who'd banded together for a modicum of protection, had surrounded their camp with their vehicles. In the centre, they now sat on a variety of folding chairs, crates, and storage boxes, sharing stories and passing about a bottle of what passed for vodka that Magda Zawalinski had found among her personal gear. Canute took the proffered bottle from her as he arrived in the midst and took a swig before passing it on to Father Businger. A priest before the event, Businger seemed to be adapting to the new world better than Canute would have expected for a man of God faced with such an apocalyptic event. The middle-aged priest chugged some of the vodka before passing it on, as he shuddered, and muttered something in Swiss German that Canute didn't quite catch. It was probably a comment about the vodka. Where exactly Magda acquired it, he shuddered to think. He wasn't actually certain that she wasn't just refining it from the fuel of one of the convoy's many vehicles. She seemed to have an almost unending supply of it, though, which baffled Canute. He decided weeks ago that it was best not to ask the civil engineer too many questions on the matter. Not that he was afraid she would be offended by those questions. It was more that he was worried he might be alarmed by her answers. A peal of laughter rang across the night as Cherubin finished the joke he'd been telling. Canute smiled. Although he'd missed the joke itself, it gladdened him that his people, that's how he'd come to see them now, could still laugh, despite everything that they'd been through. In the near distance, Ulrich sneezed again. As if in answer to him, Magda barked out a series of 3 sharp, explosive sneezes. "Great," she grumbled. "Now that damned German even has me sneezing at his command." The assembled Nomads guffawed with laughter. Magda's dislike of all things German was well known, and she seemed to resent that often the caravan's safety depended on 2 former German soldiers. The side door of the airport bus swung open, and Madame Monnier peered out, her Gallic features washed to a pallid white by worry, a detail that Canute failed to notice at first as he offered his apology. "We didn't mean to wake the children, madam. Please accept my apologies." He trailed off as the worry on her face registered. "It's not that." She spoke with a higher pitch than usual. Her already stretched nerves were on the verge of breaking. "It's Camille and Sebastian. Something's not right. Doctor, will you come and see them?" Dr. Selina Almandinger nodded and stood up. Swallowing a mouthful of vodka, she passed the bottle back to one of the others, and then the doctor trotted to the bus, with Cherubin in tow. "I'm certain it's nothing to worry about, Margot, but I'll have a look." She smiled to comfort the Frenchwoman, who'd already been through so much with the loss of her husband and eldest son. But there was something about the doctor's tone that didn't match the smile upon her lips. She was more worried than she wished the Frenchwoman to know. Canute looked back and forth between the worried faces of the 2 women. Dr. Almandinger, skilled physician, who'd been with Médecins Sans Frontières when the first diseases from the other verse hit. And Ashley Kane, English botanist. He didn't know how Ashley came to be in Central Europe, but he didn't much care one way or the other. Dr. Almandinger had called the pair of them over as soon as she'd emerged from the Monnier bus. It wasn't lost on Canute that she'd left Cherubin, her Congolese-Belgian nurse, with the children and their mother. It was the doctor who spoke first. Taking a deep breath, she spoke in English. "It's an allergic reaction. They're both prone to such things, and the boy has asthma. The pollen, if that's what it is, has triggered an attack. Cherubin is administering steroids now, but we don't have many left. You'll notice as well, there are others in our group who are also affected." Canute nodded. Even his eyes and nose were itching, and his lungs already felt heavy. Breathing was becoming more difficult than it had been before. "Could it be a night-blooming plant?" he asked, his eyes settling on Ashley, the botanist, whose face was already puffing out, her eyes and nose reddening. She wheezed as she answered, "Yes and no." She looked worried. "It's certainly something that's releasing something, but I'm given to think it's spores, not pollen. Something fungal, I think. Can you feel the pain in your lungs yet?" she asked. Canute just nodded as the botanist went on. "And I don't think it's native to here," she said pointedly. "To this part of Switzerland, do you mean?" Canute asked. In the pit of his stomach, he felt that he already knew the answer to that, but he prayed that he was wrong. He wasn't. Ashley shook her head. "No, I don't think it's native to Earth." She looked from Canute to the doctor. "Did you understand what I said?" she asked after several seconds of silence. The caravan was comprised of survivors from across half of Europe, and the number of different languages they all spoke could make conversation difficult sometimes. "Yes," Canute sighed. "I just..." He shook his head. "What do you need?" he asked Dr. Almandinger. The Swiss medic let out a long breath. "Ideally," she asked, "a full hospital pharmacy, and the hospital to go with it. If this is fungal, we'll need to treat everyone, and soon, and there's a risk of secondary infection." She trailed off. The look of alarm in Canute's face prompted her to change tack. "There's a town a few hours up the road. I recall it had a hospital. That should have everything we need." Canute nodded. "But will they still be friendly towards visitors? Especially the kind of visitors that need some of their precious medical resources," he pondered. "I don't think we have a choice. We need to find out, and we need to find out quickly. If they turn us away, well, I don't think this is going to go away on its own. And some of those spore infections from the other verse..." She didn't finish her sentence. She didn't need to. They'd all heard the rumours, and some of them had seen the effect. Canute shuddered at the thought. Or was it the cold? He tried to convince himself of the latter. "OK, tell the others to break camp. We'd better get moving. I don't like travelling at night." "But there's more." Ashley cut him off. The shock of it startled Canute. Ashley wasn't known for rudeness or for speaking over others. "We have to find and destroy the source of it." She almost growled this. Again, this was out of character, and Canute feared the spores were affecting her, just as the rumours said they would, changing those who fell under their spell into violent and aggressive savages. As if reading his mind, Ashley shook her head. "It's not that, don't worry. I mean, if the wind changes, these spores might reach us even in the town. Worse, if these are the things we've all heard about and anyone else blunders into them, we could have God alone knows how many violent psychopaths roaming around out here. And if they find us..." "When they find us," Dr. Almandinger sighed. She'd seen the people taken by the alien spore madness before. If not for the two Germans, neither her nor Cherubin would ever have escaped them. As it was, Kurt and Jonas had been 2 of 20 soldiers that had come to evacuate her medical station, and the others had all either succumbed to the madness or had died fighting those that did. It isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Ashley's right. We don't have a choice. Canute groaned, but nodded. "Tell the others to pack up as fast as they can. I'll arrange for a team to separate off and go looking for the alien plants. But the rest of us have to head for that hospital, and we have to do it now." It could already be too late for the children. Kenopsia, Pandora's Wake, The Nomad Chronicles, Book 1 by Bryan F. Irving. Read by Bryan F. Irving. Prelude.